right, good morning, Hope City. How we doing? You guys are doing great. Happy 4th of July weekend. I hope you did all of it. I hope you ate all the hot dogs and blew up all the fireworks. And I know my family did. I live in Colorado, though, so we have to be sneaky about setting off our fireworks. But we got it done. We did it. I hope you had fun at Light Up the City. I just decided that next year I'm going to make it happen. I just got to be here for it because it always sounds so epic and cool, and I'm jealous. But I hope you're having a good 4th of July weekend. Today we're jumping right back into our summer series. We're walking through Genesis. Today, if you want to get a head start, we're going to be in Genesis chapter 25. But before we jump into that chapter together, I want to tell you a story. So in an effort to teach we have 3 kids, Allie and I, to teach our kids about money, Allie and I developed a whole system. So our kids can earn points throughout the week. So they are given points for doing chores, or we'll award them points for displaying exceptional kindness or forgiveness or being a servant. And we'll sometimes take points away as discipline, but they earn points all throughout the week. Each point represents a quarter, it's 25 cents. And then at the end of the week, we take the money that they've earned, usually like $1 or $2, and we put it onto these little debit cards that we gave them, okay? We're just trying to teach them about earning money and saving money and when to spend money and all that. But I've got 2 girls and a son. My 2 girls, they'll make $2 and then spend it on a pack of gum immediately. So I don't think they're learning anything about money. My son, Micah, however, he never ever touches his points. He never spends his money. He's saved all of it up. He's added multiple birthdays worth of money into the pot and Christmas money. This kid has over $100 now and he's never touched it, okay? Every now and then he'll be for example, can I get a pair of rollerblades? And I'll be like, yeah, you can spend your money on rollerblades. And then he'll think about it and be like, no, I don't need rollerblades. He's very frugal. But a couple of weeks ago, he cracked and he came up and he's like, Dad, I think I want to spend a little bit of my money. And I was honestly shocked. And so I was like, well, okay, this is what saving is for. Okay, what have you decided to buy? And he replies, Pokemon cards. Now, I know next to nothing about Pokemon cards other than it was cool and other kids had them in the 90s back when I was a kid. And I know nothing. He hasn't talked about Pokemon in years. It just seemed random. But at the same time, it's I can't, I want him to learn the lesson of spending something that you've saved up for. So I'm okay, let's jump in the car. Let's go grab some Pokemon cards. So we go to Target to the trading card section and it's completely cleaned out. It looks like the toilet paper section during COVID. It's just nothing's there. I get online. I'm where else can you even buy these things? I find out that you can buy them at GameStops, which along with Pokemon is something I thought died and went to heaven 20 years ago. So we find the nearest GameStop. It's still early in the morning. It's 8:40 and I didn't realize they don't even open till 9. So we're there 20 minutes early and yet there is a line of people wrapped around the building waiting to get inside GameStop. Okay, most of them men my age, in the 40-ish range. And so I tell Mike, I'm dude, we got to find out what they're waiting for. Because I know that there's a new Nintendo Switch out. Maybe that's it. So let's go ask. We get out, we talk to the guys, we ask, what are you waiting for? The answer is Pokemon cards. So I strike up a conversation and I find out that these are apparently really popular again. And at least in Colorado, it's you can't find them anywhere. So you have to wait outside stores on Friday mornings for new shipments. They kept calling them drops. You got to wait for Pokemon drops on Friday mornings. I was shocked. All right. I had zero idea they were cool again. Micah had zero idea they were cool again. I feel bummed for him because he wants to spend his money and he can't. But I was like, Bud, I'm sorry, no dice. You heard the man. You can't find him anywhere. And I could tell by the length of the line, we're not going to get any here. So we call off the search. Okay. Before we go home, we decide to hit this board game store. Me and my whole extended family, we get together every couple weeks and we play party games with each other. And so there's a party game I wanted to buy for our family. So I was like, let's stop there. We'll grab that game, go home. Okay, we pull up to this store at this point, like 5 minutes before it opens. Again, like 30 people waiting to get in the store, all waiting for Pokemon cards. But it's just a few minutes till they open, so we get in line, we go inside. All these men are buying Pokemon cards while Micah just kind of like watches with longing. We go grab the game we wanted for our family. I go to check out. I ask the guy behind the counter and I go, listen, we're not like collectors or anything crazy like that. It's just my son has saved up his money and he just wants like one pack of Pokemon cards. Like, is there anywhere in the world we can find these? That's when some magic happens because Freddie, I got his name, Freddie looks around like we're a part of some like global conspiracy, okay? He looks around, he gets under the counter, he pulls out 4 Ziploc bags. Each one of these bags has 60 Pokemon cards in it. It was like a Pokemon drug deal, okay? He puts them on the counter and then he explains, he goes, hey, so each one of these bags is a deck of Pokemon cards, like so that you could actually play the game. So Micah could play the game with me or his sisters. And he goes, these were donated by regular customer. And this customer told him, hey, give this to any kid who wants Pokemon cards, but they can't find them because 40-year-old men are buying them. So he pulls them out and he goes, these are yours for free. And yeah, it was super sweet. Like there's good people out there still. Like there's the Freddies of the world. And it was awesome. Micah was just like, oh my gosh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And we shook his hand and we told him to thank the regular customer when he saw him again. It was great, okay? Here's the catch. On the way out, Micah sees a box of new Pokemon cards. It like survived the initial shopping spree somehow, okay? It's got like 100 cards in it and it costs $40, okay? Remember, Micah has all of these free cards that Freddie just gave him as a total gift in his hands, but I can see his brain working. Like he's caught up in the impulse of the moment. I'm just kind of watching him. I can see his little brain going like, man, these things are going like hotcakes. Those guys said you can't find them anywhere, and this is my chance. He spends $40 of his money, and he buys this box, okay? Later, he's opened everything up, and he's kind of looked at all of it, and I ask him, I'm like, Micah, how do you feel about the $40 of your money that you've spent? And he goes, well, I mean, there's a couple cool cards, but there's really not much I can do with them. So apparently, like, the box he bought was for collecting, while the cards that Freddie gave him were for actually playing the game. And in the end, you know what my kids talked about for days? Like they didn't talk about like, can you believe we found that new box of Pokemon? No, for days they talked about like, can you believe Freddie gave us that really cool gift? Like, in fact, later that day, my youngest, Chloe, she's 7, she's looking through the cards that Freddie gave us and she said to herself, I just overheard it. She's looking through the cards and she pauses and she looks to the sky and she just goes, sweet, sweet Freddie. Here's why I tell this story. Okay, there is, I think, a life lesson in it. The free gift ended up being better than the thing Micah sold out for. Okay, let me dig into that a little bit. So the free gift from Freddie was technically a long-term blessing. What I mean is they weren't new shiny cards. They were kind of older and beat up and used, but like they weren't just for collecting or looking at or turning for a profit. Like they were for playing the game. So it was a long-term blessing. Freddie gave that to my kids so that over time they could learn to play this game. And Micah received that long-term blessing, and then almost immediately, he got a little bit distracted, and he got distracted by instant gratification, right? A new, shiny box of cards. He gave into it, and then just like you and I, whenever we give in to instant gratification, Micah ended up regretting it, okay? Hang on to that concept. The concept of sacrificing long-term blessings for instant gratification, because we're going to come right back to it. But first, we're going to jump into Genesis chapter 25, because it's actually all about this. Okay, the story from Genesis 25 that we're going to talk about today, it's about 2 really screwed up brothers named Jacob and Esau. They are twin sons of Isaac and Rebekah, and Isaac is the son of Abraham. And so Jacob and Esau are Abraham's grandsons. You spent a couple weeks talking about Abraham. Our story picks up when these two twins are born, so let's just jump into it. This is Genesis chapter 25, verse 21. The story starts like this. So Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. But the babies jostled about within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people, one of these nations is going to be stronger than the other, and the older son will serve the younger." Okay, so these two twin baby boys are just going bonkers inside Rebekah's stomach, so much so that she asks God what's going on. And God replies that she's going to have twins, and these two boys are going to have all their own kids, and they're going to become two separate nations that are always going to be incompatible and at odds with one another. And then God tells Rebekah that the older boy will serve the younger. And that probably doesn't sound weird to our modern ears. It would have sounded very weird to Isaac and Rebekah, because at this place in time in history, there's this weird thing called the law of primogeniture. It's a really weird word. All it means is that in this time in history, the younger sons were always subservient to the oldest son, in a very day-to-day, matter-of-fact way. For example, it was only the oldest son who would team up with dad to make decisions for the family, and never the younger sons. Okay, but God says it's going to be backwards with these two boys, that the older son is going to end up serving the younger son. Rebekah doesn't know it yet, but God has given her a little bit of a heads up on some family drama that we're about to see together. Okay. Next few verses, when the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment. It's okay to be honest, it just sounds like an ugly baby. So they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. Okay, couple things. First of all, the naming of these boys is, in my opinion, hilarious, okay? Because Jacob is a word that means heel, because he was grabbing Esau's heel. And then Esau is a word that means hairy, because he's just a nasty, hairy baby. There's no creativity in naming these two boys. Isaac and Rebekah just said the first word that they thought of when they saw them. And I can't imagine naming our children based on the first thing we think of when they pop out. We should just name him Pudgy, right? Or let's call her Cross-Eyed. That's just my messed up brain, though. More importantly for today, these two boys' names end up changing later in life. I wonder why. Esau eventually becomes known as Edom, and then God himself changes Jacob's name to Israel. And just like God promised, if you read your Old Testament, you see that the nations, the Israelites and the Edomites, are constantly at odds with one another. The hostility between these two nations is the rule. It's not the exception. And that should be no surprise, because God just called it and we can trust him. But even on top of that, we see it already. These boys are fighting with each other in the womb. They're fighting when they're born, still wrestling. Jacob's still grabbing Esau's heel. And as we're about to see, they never stopped fighting since day one. Next few verses. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob, on the other hand, was a quiet man, staying among the tents. Isaac, dad, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. So they grew up. Esau became like a man's man. He was a proficient hunter, a lover of the outdoors, kind of like a ugly, hairy Bear Grylls or something like that. Jacob, on the other hand, we're told, was quiet and stayed among the tents. At this time in history, the women in a family would stay at the tents and cook and clean and care for camp. So this is honestly kind of the biblical way of saying that Jacob's a little bit of a mama's boy, okay? And so not only could these two brothers be more different from one another, which is going to cause tension, but then on top of that, we're told that mom and dad just play outright favorites, right? Dad loves Esau, mom loves Jacob. Just blatant favoritism, which isn't going to help anything. Okay, here comes the climax of our story for today. Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country, just finished hunting or whatever, and he was famished. And he said to Jacob, quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished. And this is why he was also called Edom. Edom means red. He wants red stew. Jacob replied, okay, I'll give you some stew, but first sell me your birthright. And again, this gets lost on modern ears because just things have changed. But what's happening right now is nuts, because Jacob is offering to buy Esau's birthright in exchange for a bowl of soup. And birthrights in Jacob and Esau's time were like just incredibly, incredibly important. Okay, so remember the weird word, the law of primogeniture. That's what this is all about. During this time, the oldest son and only the oldest son would inherit a birthright. Okay, a birthright was a legally binding transaction that gave the oldest son more position and more inheritance than all of his brothers. Okay, so the birthright gave position. Like the birthright offered the oldest son the same legal authority as his dad, so he could go do business on his dad's behalf. The birthright offered the oldest son leadership over his family as soon as dad got too old to take care of business. The birthright also offered more inheritance. The oldest son would get a double portion of the father's estate. So to do the math for us, in the case of Jacob and Esau, just only two boys, Esau is set up to receive 2/3 of his dad's money and livestock and all that, and Jacob is set up to only inherit 1/3. Okay, the birthright is very important. Again, it only goes to the oldest son. If the oldest son dies prematurely or unexpectedly, it doesn't even pass down to the next oldest son. It just dissolves. And the only way for a younger son to gain a birthright is to purchase it. Okay, there's other documents from this time that talk about oldest sons selling portions of their birthright or selling their entire birthright to their younger brothers out of desperation, just because they need to make a quick buck. Okay, so the birthright is, we can't even truly understand it. It's a massive deal in this time. And here's Jacob, and he's like, hey, I'll give you a bowl of soup if you sell me your birthright. And so surely Esau can't be that hungry, right? Well, Esau said, look, Jacob, I'm about to die, all right? So what good is that birthright to me? And this one's tough because not only is Esau treating his birthright like it's unimportant, which it's incredibly important, but then on top of that, he's Abraham's grandson. And in this family, it's very important. Like, God made a covenant with Abraham. He told Abraham, I'm gonna bless you and your sons and their sons. I'm gonna bless other nations through your family. And so what Esau basically just said is he goes, hey, Jacob, what good is that old promise God made grandpa? That can't help me today. I'm starving. Next, Jacob said, swear to me first. So Esau, swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Again, it's a big deal. Verbal oaths in this time made something legally binding forever. So what Esau just did is as legally binding as signing a modern day contract. So just to make sure all of that hits home, Esau just legally signed away his rights to a double portion of his father's inheritance. He signed away his rights to leadership and authority over his family in exchange for a bowl of soup. It's bonkers. And then our story ends like this. It says, then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. So the story ends with a double gut punch. The first gut punch is that Esau ate, drank, and then got up and left. In other words, he wasn't actually starving. His life was in no real danger. He was just really hungry and also really impatient. Then the second gut punch is we don't even learn till the end that it was lentil stew, bean soup. Just gross. That's the only point to that. It's just disgusting. It's also the end. Okay, so there's so many things we could kind of focus on from this story for today. We could talk about, the dangers of playing favorites with your kids, or we could talk about God's grace and mercy in the midst of a broken family. We could talk about how not to name your children. But for the rest of our time together, we'll focus on this. We'll focus on sacrificing long-term blessings for instant gratification. Because at first, it's easy to judge Esau, right? It's easy to look at him and go like, this dude's an idiot. Like, he gave up all that money for some bean soup. Like, I would never do something that stupid. But like, wait a minute. Because really? Like, haven't we done this before? Don't we do this all the time? Don't we sacrifice or ignore long-term blessings to go chase after some instant gratification? What do I mean by that? I mean, for example, like, we got all caught up in that one website, or all caught up with flirting with that one coworker at the expense of remaining faithful to our marriage. We regret that one. We made a mess of stuff. We got all caught up in the buzz of having like one too many drinks every single night at the expense of our own health and our own self-discipline. We regret that one. We're hooked now. We don't know how to stop. We put our kids in front of video games all day long at the expense of like building real deep relationships with them. We regret that now. They graduated in May. They're leaving our house. We don't know where all the time went. What do you call that? You call that sacrificing long-term blessings for instant gratification. That's what Esau did. That's what we do all of the time. In fact, we probably have a rougher go of it than Esau did, because you and I, we live in a culture that revolves around instant gratification, right? Like, we want what we want, and we want it right now. You see it everywhere. Now think about streaming, for example. You can watch whatever you want and watch it now. You can subscribe to a few of these services. You got hundreds of thousands of movies and TV shows at your fingertips. Like, half the time, Allie and I get on Netflix, spend an hour looking through the selection, and then just go to bed without watching anything. It's like, it's too many options, right? My kids don't even know a world without streaming. So every now and then we'll watch something on like live TV, and they don't understand it. Like, they'll be like, pause it. And I'm like, I can't, right? Or go start the episode over. I can't, it's live, right? Commercials come on and they have no idea why there's no skip ad button coming up in the corner. Think about Amazon Prime, same day delivery. I mean, that's all about instant gratification. Not long ago, my phone charger broke, so I jump on Amazon, I order a new one. It says it's gonna be at my house in 3 days. I swear my first reaction was like, what is this, the 1800s? Like, are you delivering this charger on a horse and buggy? Of course, I could have just canceled the order, gone to Target, bought a charger, been home within an hour, but I just didn't want to change out of my PJs. So I was like, I guess my phone doesn't work for 3 days. We've got dating apps, right? So that people can just hook up as quickly as possible. We've got DoorDash and Uber Eats for those of us who want takeout, but we don't want to go out to take the food home. Like, I could go on and on. The list goes on. You get it. We live in a culture that revolves around instant gratification. We want what we want, and we want it right now. And the bummer, the result, is that we're losing the ability to have a little bit of grit. And that's too bad. Because like the really, really good things in life, we already know this. They don't come through instant gratification, right? The long-term blessings of life, they all require grit. You got to have some endurance and determination. You got to put in the time and put in the work. Like, there's no instant way of finding someone to spend the rest of your life with. You can't do that overnight. It takes time. Got to go on that first date and awkwardly get to know each other and realize mid-meal that there's no way to eat a meatball sandwich without looking like an idiot, right? You got to do that again and again and another date and another date. Like, it takes a lot of time to actually get to know another human being. You got to be vulnerable. You got to place trust. You got to learn how to disagree and argue and recover from all of it. Like, it's really, really hard work. It takes grit. But if you put the work in, you might just create a relationship that can survive better or worse, richer or poor, in sickness and in health. With a little bit of grit, you might just end up with a long-term blessing. Parenting, that takes a ton of grit, right? Like, Some days I'll wake up in the morning and my first thought is like, man, don't take today for granted with your kids. They're growing up so fast. Like that'll happen every now and then. Most days I just wake up and I'm like, why are you breathing on my face at 6 a.m.? You know, like when are you old enough to get a job and contribute around here? Like it takes endurance, determination, work to build a relationship with my 3 little kids. Like it's so easy to park them in front of video games or YouTube all day long so I can go do whatever I want. I've done it before. I've done it so many times. I'm ashamed of it. I'm ashamed of it because isn't that just the parenting version of giving up on a long-term blessing so I can go eat some bean soup? Right? And if we were to show a little bit of grit with our kids, like, don't you think that maybe, just maybe, like when everyone's old and grown, like we could be friends with them? Like we might be able to cash in on the long-term blessing of having a family that still loves each other after all these years? Esau gave up. He gave up on a long-term blessing because he lacked grit. He just wanted what he wanted and he wanted it right now. And he was willing to sacrifice something very important in order to satisfy that appetite. And if we're being really honest with ourselves, we can't judge Esau because we do the same thing every time. We're making all these same little compromises day in and day out. So what do we do about that? Well, I'm reminded, like this story reminds me of some encouragement that Paul gave his buddies who lived in Galatia. He said this, he said, let us not become weary in doing good. So don't get tired of doing the good thing and doing the right thing, because at the proper time, we're gonna reap a harvest if we don't give up. So at the proper time, you and I have a shot at reaping a harvest. Like we have a shot at reaping the benefits of some long-term blessings in our life, in our marriages, our parenting, our careers, our friendships, our health, our faith, you name it. Like, but we're never going to get to see the fruit of those long-term blessings if we quit today. And so I'd love to wrap up by encouraging us to learn a lesson from Esau's failures so that we can learn to show some grit. What do I mean by grit? I basically just mean, like, let's put up a good fight. Okay, that, in my opinion, that's the saddest part of Esau's story. Like everybody makes mistakes, everybody screws up. The saddest part of Esau's story to me is that man, he went down without putting up a good fight. He just caved immediately. But Paul in the New Testament, like he talks a lot about putting up a good fight. So putting up a good fight against your own sinful nature and sinful desires, putting up a good fight against our tendency to compromise on our integrity, and putting up a good fight from chasing after instant gratifications. Like he talks a lot about this and he doesn't mince words. He's very direct. Paul says stuff like this. Don't you know that in a race, all the runners run, only one of those suckers gets a prize, so run that race like you're trying to get a prize. Everyone who competes in games, they go in through strict training. They're doing it to get a crown that's not gonna last. We're doing it to get a crown that lasts forever. We're out here running after long-term blessings. Therefore, I don't run like a man running aimlessly, and I don't fight like a man beating the air. No, instead, I beat my body and make it my slave. In other words, I make my passions answer to me, so that after I've preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified from the prize. That's all about putting up a good fight. Paul says stuff like this, put to death, go and kill whatever belongs to your earthly nature, sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, greed, which is idolatry. Paul says stuff like this, therefore, brothers, we have an obligation, and we are not obligated to live according to our sinful nature. If we live according to our sinful nature, we're gonna die by that. But if by the Spirit we continually put to death the misdeeds of the body, we're gonna live. Because those who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God. Man, Paul talks nonstop about putting up a good fight. And it's not just Paul. You find it all over the Bible. You find this theme that putting up a good fight against your own sinful nature is one of the primary hallmarks of the sons and daughters of God. What do I mean by putting up a good fight? I mean this, for example. Let's say after years and years of sobriety, yesterday you had a drink. Okay, I'm sorry. You didn't want to, you did. Why? Probably because that drink was promising you something that it was never going to cash in on to begin with. Paul would say it like this: it just feels like every time we try to do the right thing, it's like evil is right there with us. But you had a drink, okay? Listen, that was yesterday, all right? What are you going to do today? Well, you're a child of God, so you're going to put up a good fight. Right? Yesterday was already forgiven. That's been forgiven for a real long time. Today is up to you and the Holy Spirit, so go put up a good fight. For if you catch yourself desiring the secretary more than your wife, man, go to war. Go to war against that part of your heart. If you're backstabbing other employees so that you can climb the corporate ladder, that's greed. Put up a good fight. When laziness, selfishness, gossip, hatred, revenge, insecurity, like when the pills, the pornography, the self-harm, you name it, when these instantly gratifying things threaten to burden you again with the weight of their shame, put your dukes up and start swinging. Put up a good fight. To quote the pastor John Piper, in all of the verses that we just read from Paul, Paul's not even saying that we need a particular level of success in this fight. So what that means is Paul's not saying that you only become a child of God as soon as you KO the 3 big sins, right? As soon as you're like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. He's not saying that, okay? Instead, he's saying that once you become a child of God, you're in the fight. And all you got to do is stay in the fight. Period. A child of God is not marked by undefeated success in the fight against our sinful nature. Instead, a child of God is marked by an undefeated desire for success in our fight against the sinful nature. And so some days you're going to win that battle. Those are rad days. Be thankful for those days. It's just most days, many days, you're just going to get whooped. All right? On those days, the Spirit gives you the power and the strength to pray and say, God, I lost that round. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. He does. Sometimes you're just going to get laid out flat. Through the power of the Holy Spirit, though, the sons and daughters of God always get back up, and we always get up swinging because we're trying to put up a good fight. Esau just never put up a fight. Right? The result is that he sacrificed a long-term blessing to chase after a little bit of instant gratification. And we should learn our lesson from him so that we don't have to learn it ourselves the hard way. And if I were to sum up the lesson, if I kind of sum up everything we talked about today, it would be this, kind of in my own weird brain's language, but it would be this. There are all these little compromises to our own integrity. And there's all these little promises of instant gratification that you and I got to go to war with every single day on a daily basis. But if there's one lesson to learn from the story of Esau, I think it's this. It is compared to the long-term blessings that Jesus is prepared to offer you. Man, the rest is bean soup. Right? The pills, the pornography, the selfishness, the hatred, the climbing the ladder at work, like it's all bean soup compared to the long-term blessings that Jesus has to offer us. And so before I pray, before we have a moment of silence and take communion together, I want to encourage us. I'm preaching to myself as much as I'm preaching to you. But may we wake up every single morning ready to jump into the ring of our lives with our dukes up. May we put up a good fight, even if we lose a lot of these battles, even if it's a sloppy, uncoordinated fight, even if we get banged up pretty often, even if when the bell rings at the end of the day, we're just barely crawling back to our corner, may we put up a good fight, because putting up a good fight is a hallmark of the sons and daughters of God. Let's pray. God, thank you for this moment right now and these people and the chance to just get together with other brothers and sisters in your huge worldwide history-spanning family, just to get together to learn a little bit more about you, to try to figure out how we could look a little more like you. So thank you for this moment right now. God, teach us to put up a good fight. For a lot of us in the room, we already know, we knew right away, that we know exactly what we need to put up a better fight against. And so, God, for those of us who have that discernment, we know what we need to go to battle against, would you give us the strength and courage that it takes to start putting up a good fight? God, for any of us who might feel shame in the room right now because they know that thing, but they also know that they've not put up a very good fight. So if there's anyone feeling shame right now, God, would you do what only you can do and speak your grace and your mercy and your love and your unending forgiveness to their hearts? But God, ultimately, help us to put up a good fight, because we know we are your sons and we are your daughters, and we know that's a hallmark of what it looks like to be in your family. We want to do a good job of it. So God, give us the strength, the discernment, the courage that we're going to need to put up a good fight. I love you. I pray this in your son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.